Welcome, Chris Riviera, to TDC Talks. So happy to have you here. You're kind of a celebrity online for e-commerce, dropshipping, and you're an accountant. I'm so happy because you have so much knowledge to share. So please tell us about yourself and why should they listen to this podcast that's going to be filled with information.
Yeah, so first of all, thanks so much for having me on here. Big fan of the podcast. So I am a certified public accountant that specializes in e-commerce businesses specifically. Prior to starting my firm, I actually worked at Ernst & Young, which is an accounting firm. I was in corporate America where I was actually specializing in retail businesses, big, large multinational corporations. Now I kind of transitioned into solopreneurs, people that have online businesses that are e-commerce. And I've brought a lot of the lessons I learned from corporate America and big businesses to help tax plan for smaller companies.
So we have an expert here that basically knows everything about accounting and how to do business online. So to get started the podcast, what do you need to register a company to do business online? Because I know so many people just go on the fly. I have an idea. Let me register a Shopify store, or Kartra account, or Wix account, and let's do business online. But actually, you have to do something. So what do you recommend? What's that first step?
Yeah, so I always recommend setting up an LLC just so you have legal protection. The reality is that if you have the itch now to be an entrepreneur, that's going to be a lifelong thing. You're always going to dabble in different businesses and try new things until you find something that works. So setting up an LLC would be extremely helpful so that you have legal protection, but also you can't really do any tax planning without having an LLC. Now, the reality is a lot of people that just start out, especially the younger crowd, don't really have the $300 to $500 to set up an LLC right off the bat. So my recommendation for those people is just get started. It's okay to start off as a side hustle, really focus on generating sales and getting that business off the ground. Then you can always clean up the structure later on.
Exactly. So you can use actually your personal account to receive payments, and then later on you can upgrade to a business account and all of this, right?
That's exactly right.
Awesome. So now, which entity do you recommend? You said LLC. There are other entities that you recommend if you are more advanced, or what's the approach that they should take?
Yep, so I always recommend LLCs, even for the foreigners. And the reasoning is very simple. LLCs have very flexible tax treatment. So for example, if you're an American, I would say, an American dropshipper, 99% of those type of people, once they're ready for tax planning, they can convert their LLC to an S Corp very easily. Even for the people that S Corps don't make the most sense, you can convert your LLC to a C Corp. And same type of deal for the foreigners. If they have an LLC in the US, 9 times out of 10, that's all they need is just an LLC in the US. But if they're the type of foreign business professional that needs a more complex structure, you can convert that LLC to a different structure here in the US. So the great thing about LLCs is they have flexible tax treatment, which is why I highly recommend them for entrepreneurs in general.
Awesome. So let's say that someone is getting sales already and the tax season is approaching. So when should people pay taxes, quarterly or yearly? Because this is a big question in the industry.
Yeah, so generally speaking, if you're a taxpayer, and I'll get into that in a second, if you're a taxpayer, meaning you owe the IRS money in taxes, you're technically required to pay your taxes quarterly. Everyone says like, oh, it's April 15th. That means it's time to pay my taxes. That's actually not the truth. April 15th is when you file your tax return, which tells the IRS how much money you made and what your total taxes are. You're actually supposed to pay your taxes in advance. The best way to understand this is think about, if you ever had a W-2 job, when you receive your salary or your wages from your job, let's say you made $100, you don't get $100 direct deposit. It's usually taxes are taken out of your paycheck, you get a net amount. But if you're in business and you have $100 in sales, forget about the merchant fees for a second, you're getting $100 deposited into your account, so you're not paying any taxes. The IRS obviously knows this, so every 3 months, the IRS forces you to stop, calculate your profits, estimate what your taxes are, and make a payment in. So you do that every 3 months, make a payment, make a payment, make a payment, make a payment. Then by the time you do your tax return, if you think about it, you probably already paid your taxes. So when you file your tax return, if you made too many payments, you get a refund from the IRS. If you didn't make enough, then you have to make a small payment into the IRS. So technically speaking, the IRS requires for you to do it that way.
Exactly. So there is a form for this, right? They can go to the IRS website and they can get the form and they can submit the payment every quarter, right?
Well, you could actually log into the IRS website without like credentials or anything like that and make the payments directly online. So it's irs.gov/payments. And then you just navigate to like how you want to make a payment, and then you select estimated tax payment. And with a quick Google search, you can see what the deadlines are for estimated payments. I'm not going to go over the dates right now because with COVID, the dates kind of moved and it's very confusing this year. But it's very easy to look on the IRS website to see what the deadlines are for when you need to make estimated payments.
Exactly. So let's say that someone is really messy with accounting and they forgot to do the payments every quarter. What happens if they have to do it at the end of the year? Is there a penalty for that, or what happens there?
Yeah, so as I said, the IRS requires for you to make estimated payments quarterly. Now, I'll be honest, a lot of my clients still are in that situation where they're like, I don't feel like dealing with the headache of calculating my estimated taxes. I'm just going to pay it all, during tax season. Now, what happens is eventually the IRS will catch on to that. Might not be within the first year or second year, but what I typically see is the IRS will send you a letter that says, hey, you should be making quarterly estimated payments and you have not been. Here's a letter with penalties and interest for not making quarterly estimated payments. And I'll be honest with you, the penalties are not all that substantial, but they'll basically slap you in the wrist every single year that you do that. So my recommendation is eventually, as you're getting sustainable sales for your business, you start to consider, paying your taxes more frequently, which is quarterly. And by the way, it helps you with your cash flow anyway. If you owe, let's just make an example up. If you owe $50,000 in taxes, it's easy to pay, $10,000, $10,000, $10,000, $10,000 instead of like all in one shot making a $50,000 tax payment. So just another consideration there as well.
Exactly. And you need to be in good standing with the IRS. You don't want to be getting letters every time just because it's scary. I mean, sometimes people get them and they start calling the accountant like, hey, what's going on? So it's better to be just doing the quarterly payments and be safe from that. Okay. So does someone have to pay sales taxes and also income taxes? Because I know so many people don't know what's going on, and so many people are selling physical products to other states and overseas. So what's the deal there?
Sales taxes are not a tax that you technically pay. It's technically a tax that your customer pays. The best way to visualize this is think about any time that you've gone to a grocery store or you bought groceries or you bought clothing, whatever. If on a t-shirt rack, a t-shirt says it's $20, you can't just give them a $20 bill and you're done, because what happens is they calculate sales taxes, right? So you as the customer are paying sales taxes. Same thing goes for you as an e-commerce business. If you're shipping to a state that you have sales tax nexus in, you're supposed to charge your customer sales taxes. And Shopify makes this very easy. You could just turn on sales taxes in whatever states you have nexus in. And basically what happens is upon checkout, that customer, when they're putting in their address, automatically, let's say your average order value is $20, automatically a tax will generate and your customer upon checkout will pay, whatever your total, whatever the order is, plus sales taxes. Now you as the business owner collect all of the money, both the sales taxes and the value of the order. And then those sales taxes, you hang on to them until you owe the payment into the state. It's a little bit annoying from a cash flow standpoint, but let's say your average order value is $20 and sales taxes on that $20 is, $1.50, okay, or $2. Let's make it easy for rounding, $2. That means the customer is going to pay you 20 plus 2. You're going to receive $22 as part of the sale. And literally what you do is you take that $2 and you have to pay that into the state eventually. Now, just to keep things simple, because sales taxes are extremely complex, I recommend that if you're a beginner, you only do this in the states that you have physical presence in. That's the state you live in and the states that you warehouse inventory in. Okay, so just to keep it simple, those are the only states that you should be collecting or remitting sales taxes.
Exactly. So that sounds super straightforward. Thank you for that, because I know so many people have different questions about it. So that's great. And you mentioned something called Nexus. Can you explain that word? Because so many people are going to be like, oh, what's Nexus? What's that?
Yeah, so Nexus is basically means a presence. So essentially, there are two types of Nexus as it pertains to sales taxes. There is economic Nexus, then there's physical Nexus. Physical Nexus is like, where is your business physically located? And that includes two things. It includes, number one, where is your inventory, right? So where is your inventory physically located? And number two is, where are you physically present as a business owner? And what makes it a little bit more complicated is if you have a partnership, let's say, right? And there are two people that are both on the LLC. If you're in two different states, that means your business is physically present in two different states. So that's physical Nexus. That is a slam dunk. You have to collect and remit sales taxes in those states that you're physically present. Now, we also have economic Nexus, which means where you have a lot of sales. So to keep this very, very easy, because the rules are complex, and to be honest with you, they're different in every single state, my recommendation is if in the last 12 months you have in excess of $100,000 in sales in any particular state that you're not physically present in, you consult with a professional to figure out whether or not you have Nexus and whether or not you should be collecting or remitting sales taxes.
Exactly. That's the best approach. So now let's say that we have people selling physical products. Now, digital products, do you have to pay sales taxes for that? Or people can do just selling the product and only pay income taxes?
Okay, so for digital products, technically speaking, in most states, you do not have a sales tax filing obligation. Sales taxes are completely based on tangible personal property. In other words, if you're in the business of selling, let's say, pens, right? So this is tangible personal property. You can feel it, touch it, it's an actual physical product. If you're in the business of selling courses or digital products, technically speaking, that is not tangible personal property. So you likely have extremely low risk of sales taxes.
Exactly. Super clear. Thank you for that. So after how many sales should someone create an LLC? So let's say we talked a little bit earlier, like, okay, you can start under your name as a sole proprietor and then receive payment to your checkings account. But after how many sales you can say, okay, listen, it's time that you get serious and find an accountant and get the numbers right?
Yeah. So for the accountant and LLC, it's kind of like the same situation. For the LLC, it's as soon as you know that it's real and this is going to be long-term situation for you. So LLCs, like I said, if in the beginning you're getting some traction, you're getting sales, having an LLC is a good idea because you can tax plan and it gives you legal protection. For the accountant, I recommend that you get an accountant, and it doesn't have to be someone, super qualified, like a CPA or someone who is experienced with tax planning until you're making substantial amounts of money. But the reality is, if you're self-employed and you have to report income, it's more complex. So I wouldn't recommend doing it in TurboTax if you have to report business income. Now, with that being said, as soon as you cross $20,000 in sales on any payment processor, meaning if you do $20,000 in sales in PayPal, in Shopify Payments, or any one of those payment processors, Stripe, etc., those companies have an obligation to let the IRS know that you as a business owner are making money. So literally, once you cross $20,000 in sales, Stripe will let the IRS know that, hey, so-and-so has sales in this business and these are the sales and you should expect the tax return. So as soon as you cross $20,000 in sales in any payment processor, I recommend that you consult with an accountant to figure out what you should be reporting as income.
Exactly. So a question that ties to that is some people run like 5 Shopify stores or 5 different, side hustles online. Should they register different LLCs for each one, or can they do it under one?
Yeah, so I don't know who started this rumor where it's like you have to have a different LLC for every single store you have. The reality is that is far too complex for this type of business. I have clients that run multiple Shopify stores under the same business entity, and it's completely fine. There's basically 2 scenarios where I recommend that you start splitting up revenue streams into different business entities. Scenario 1 is if you're selling a high-risk product. So for example, right now, what's very hot in the space is subscription-based stores. So if you're selling subscriptions outside of just general, Shopify sales, you should structure in a separate business entity because usually chargebacks, refunds, etc., are higher in those types of businesses. Number 2 is partnerships. If you have a partnership with someone else that you both want to have a new LLC, I recommend setting up a new LLC that you guys as individuals don't own, an interest in, but your LLCs both are partners on that LLC. Now, that definitely makes the structure more complex, and it includes a lot of tax returns. So again, I wouldn't set something out like that without consulting with a professional first. But those are usually the only 2 instances where I see setting up different business entities. I guess the third one is if you have a revenue stream that's so drastically different than e-commerce, that's another scenario. Like, for example, if you're in the business of doing e-commerce, but also you now can afford to buy real estate and have real estate investment properties. Obviously, those real estate properties should be in a different LLC than your e-commerce stuff.
Exactly, because we have some people that realtors and then they want to sell their courses. So the best way for them will be to separate both, because at some point it will be the best approach. These 2 different business models. So that's great. Thank you for that. Awesome. Yeah. So what happened if you don't pay taxes? So many people are like, well, I don't have to pay anything. I don't owe anything to anyone. So what happens there?
Yep. So a couple of things. Usually how it starts is the IRS will send you a letter. So if the IRS calls you and says that you owe money and you have to pay immediately, that's a scam. That's very well known that there are scams out there like that. The IRS will not call you. They'll send you a letter. So usually what will happen is it depends on how material it is. But usually what I see with e-commerce businesses is they have sales. Again, like Stripe, for example, will send you a 1099K form, right, that shows your sales that are in excess of $20,000. The IRS also gets a copy of that form, so the IRS knows that you have sales. If they're substantial enough, the IRS will literally send you a letter saying you owe X amount of dollars in taxes. Now, what's funny is they completely make that number up. They estimate it based on what your sales are, and they're like, hey, this is what you owe. You had 100,000 in sales, you owe us $20,000. And it'll look scary, but the reality is, if you file a tax return and report the accurate numbers, probably is going to be much lower number than the IRS says that you actually owe. So the short answer to your question is they'll send you a letter that's a bill because they're completely estimating what it is that you owe. And in more severe scenarios, they'll actually start seizing your assets. Like if you don't pay taxes for like 10-year period, but you own a home, you own cars, they can actually start seizing your assets if they somehow get a hold of records of things that you own.
Exactly. So, super insightful. And also, let's say that someone is already in business for a year, they're getting sales, they have their LLC, everything is fine. I know in the industry, a lot of accountants recommend to open or file as an S Corp. What are the benefits of that?
Yep. So just to keep it simple, because again, it's a tax planning strategy that's one of the most simple. The tax savings can be substantial, but it's still pretty complex to kind of water it down. But to make it very, very simple, if you have an LLC or if you don't have an LLC, the tax treatment's exactly the same, as silly as that sounds. LLCs by themselves do not save you money in taxes. People think like, oh, I have an LLC, now I'm saving money in taxes. It's not the truth at all. The tax treatment is exactly the same whether you have an LLC or don't. You have to specially elect tax treatment to get tax benefits. Now, people think like, oh, well, I'm just going to do that from the start. When you specially elect those tax treatments, it complicates your tax situation. So I do not recommend doing that until you're ready to consult with a professional and really structure your business to save money in taxes. Now, to answer your question, the reason why S Corps are so beneficial is because if you're self-employed, right, which is if you have an LLC or don't have an LLC, the IRS is going to tax you twice. They're going to hit you with income taxes and they're going to hit you with self-employment taxes. This is fact. Well documented. You can look it up yourself. Now, self-employment taxes is a 15.3% tax rate. So if you have $100,000 in taxable income, approximately, your self-employment taxes are going to be 15.3K. Now, S Corps are not subject to self-employment taxes. In other words, that 15.3% tax rate completely goes away. However, it's not that easy because now you're no longer self-employed. If you have an S Corp, now you're the employee of a corporation. As ridiculous as it sounds, yes, you own the corporation, but you now are no longer self-employed. You're now the employee of a corporation. So there's a whole slew of issues that come up with that. So my recommendation is if you're ready to graduate to that S Corp level, consult with a professional. It's not something you should do on your own.
Exactly. But it has a ton of benefits. So if you pass that threshold, it's time to call the accountant and just ask for a way to save on taxes. And that'll be one of those.
Exactly. Because the name of the game is that 15.3% self-employment tax rate is essentially what goes away once you set up an S Corp.
Exactly. So now something that's spoken a lot on the streets, like everybody, oh, I'm going to write off to my taxes. This is going to be a write-off. I can do this and that. So what a write-off and what can someone actually write off?
Yep. So the IRS, if you're in business, okay, income taxes are based on your net income, okay, or your profits. In other words, you have revenues less your expenses gets you to your profit number. Whenever anyone says write-offs or deductions or expenses, they all mean the same thing. That means that's your expense number that offsets your revenues to get to your profits. What's funny is, basically anywhere else, if your profits are high, it feels really good. Like, wow, I'm profiting a lot of money. My margins are great. Except for when it comes time to pay taxes, then if your margins are great, it's like, wow, maybe I'm not as profitable as I thought because now I have to pay taxes on my profits. So in terms of what write-offs or deductions are, those are expenses that offset your revenues to get to your profit number. Now, in terms of what are items that are deductible or expense-worthy, the IRS leaves the definition very, very vague for a reason, so that if they audit you, they can come in and disallow whatever they want. But basically, to be able to deduct something on your tax return, it has to be an ordinary and necessary expense for your business. So ordinary meaning in your line of work, a lot of other people have that sort of expense, and necessary meaning if you don't have that expense, you cannot continue operating. So, things like, for example, if you're in the business of drop shipping, ad spend is ordinary because, everyone has that expense in the space. It's necessary if you don't scale your ad, if you don't scale your, landing page through ads, you're not going to get any sales. That is an ordinary and necessary expense. However, if something like Air Jordans, okay, if I go to the store, buy Air Jordans, is it an ordinary expense? I don't, maybe not, probably not. Is it necessary? No, I can sit here barefoot in my underwear and, sell products online all day. It's not necessary. So as you can tell, it's a little bit gray. There's wiggle room there. My recommendation is in your wallet, you have two separate cards, right? You have your business bank account, business credit card, personal bank account, personal credit card. So every time you make a purchase, you make that decision where it's like, wow, should this go on the business card or should this go on the personal card? That way you can more accurately track, what things are expenses for your business versus what are things for personal.
Now that, let's say that someone wants to get started and open a company, what are the best states to open a company? And if I'm somewhere else, like I'm in Florida and want to open a company in a different state, can I do that?
Yeah, so for example, my business is based in Wyoming. And the reason why I recommend Wyoming and Delaware is because the rules to maintain the business entity are very simple. So for example, if I have a Wyoming LLC, in order to keep that business in good standing, I pay $150 a year just to have Wyoming business entity to operate legally. Okay. Now, some states have these quirky rules. Like I just dealt with one of my clients in California where there's an $800 tax every year. Unless you make a certain amount of money, then they charge you much, much more, which is very annoying to deal with. So my recommendation is you register in Wyoming or Delaware because it's very easy to keep a business in good standing. Then to the extent that you're operating in other states, you register for only certain things in those states. So for example, my business is a Wyoming business, okay? So if someone were to sue me legally, they have to sue me in the courts of Wyoming, okay? And my business, to keep it in good standing, I have to go to the Wyoming government to, keep my business in good standing. However, my business is truly operating in Florida. I live in Florida. Most of my people are here in Florida. So for example, for payroll taxes and for sales taxes, okay, I'm registered here in Florida. I'm not registered as a Florida business entity. I'm registered in Florida for sales taxes. I mean, not for sales taxes for me, but if I were a drop shipper, I'd be registered for sales taxes and I'd be registered to pay my employees here in Florida. That's it. I'm not a Florida LLC. I am a Wyoming LLC.
Now, let's say that someone is outside of the US. Can foreigners register an LLC and have an EIN number inside the USA? Or what's that process?
Yeah, so a lot of times with foreigners, they want to do business in USD. So basically, all you need to do is set up a US LLC, US bank account, US payment processor, etc. Now, what's cool about this is as long as you don't have a physical presence in the US, meaning no inventory, and you're not living in the US, and you have no partners in the US, you don't have to pay taxes in the US. The only thing you have to do is file what's called Form 5472, which basically tells the IRS how much money is going into the country, how much money is going out of the country. And you don't have to pay taxes in the US. As long as you're compliant and you tell the IRS what money is going in, what money is going out, you don't have to worry about pulling money out of the country and operating in USD, which is very, very valuable to people. Let's say you have a drop shipper in Germany that wants to tap into the US market. The reality is conversion for sales is going to be low if they're running ads in the US. Americans don't want to pay in euro or whatever the currency is over there. And instead they want to pay in USD. So in order for you to operate in USD, you have to have a payment processor here in the US. And in order to get a payment processor, you need an LLC here in the US.
Exactly. So do you do the form first and then you apply for the LLC, or the other way around?
What's the other way around? So you set up the LLC first and the bank account first. Then every year, April 15th, and this is the only exception because you're not paying taxes, you file by April 15th a form with the IRS that tells them, hey, I am a LLC that is owned entirely by a foreign person. Here's the money that's going in and out of the country. That's it. You're done.
That's it. And do they need a physical address inside the US or a PO box or something like that? Or can I do it with an address outside of the US?
Yep. So in terms of a physical address, I would not recommend you have like an office or anything here in the US. But what they have are called registered agents. And these companies, they're basically in the business of collecting your business related mail. So in terms of having an address in the US, setting up an LLC, you will be required to have a US address. And a lot of times for companies like LegalZoom, for example, You can set up a registered agent when you set up the business entity. Costs like an extra, let's say $100 a year. Okay. And these registered agents, literally all that their job is they have an address that you as a business owner can send your mail to. And their job is literally scan the mail and send it to you. Just be like, hey, we have mail and this is the important mail you received, and that's it. So in order to keep a U.S. business entity, usually states do require for you to have a registered agent. So just keep that in mind.
Okay, that's super, super insightful. Also, let's say that how should people handle payroll and business draws? Let's say that someone is already set up and they want to get paid, I need to pay rent and all of this. So do they take the money out from the account? Should they set up a payroll? What's the process?
Yeah, so for solopreneurs, or what we do, I would not recommend setting up payroll, which is a formal like W-2 salary with pay stubs and direct deposit and W-2s, all that stuff. I would not recommend setting that up until you have tax planning set up, like when you graduate to that S-Corp level. Before that, what's cool about LLCs is you can put money into the business, you can take money out of the business, tax-free. You can do that whenever you want. So my recommendation is just operating through owner draws, where you put money in to fund the business, and to the extent the business is profitable and you have cash sitting in the business, pull it out whenever you want. Obviously, you still have to pay your income taxes, same as anyone else, but the IRS doesn't care whether the money's in the business or out of the business. They just care that you're paying your income taxes as it becomes due.
Exactly. And also, how should people handle partnerships? Let's say that there are two people that want to do business, open a dropshipping store or an e-com, anything. How do they set up this?
Yeah, so there's two ways that I recommend doing this. The first way is if you guys are dead set on both having equity in the business, you set up an LLC where you're both owners, okay? Now, here's the reality. These dropshipping stores, they're not super, what's the word I'm looking for? Proprietary. It's not like you have a proprietary software or proprietary product or anything like that, that you both would need equity. So a lot of times at dropshipping stores, if you're still in that dropshipping phase, is you have one person that owns the business entity. It's 100% owned by one of the partners. All of the income goes in there. All the expenses hit that account. They calculate the profit. They calculate what 50% of the profit is, and they pay out the partner as a contractor. So basically, let's say you and I are partners and our business profited $50,000, okay? And let's say I'm the partner that has the business entity, controls, everything. What I'll do is I'll calculate the profits, and then I'll pay you out as a contractor $25,000. So for me, as a business owner, I have a $25,000 deduction, which brings my profits from $50,000 down to $25,000. Then you, as my partner, have $25,000 of income that you report on your tax return. So that way, the profits are cleanly split up, and you can figure out your tax situation, and I can figure out my tax situation, and it makes it much simpler. Partnerships on LLCs could also work. It makes things slightly more complex. But to be honest, whatever works. If you have more budget for taxes and accounting to hire a professional, the LLC with multiple members is not that much of a headache.
Exactly. Super valuable information. Now, just to close, when should people contact an accountant? Let's say for income tax and then for bookkeeping. When is that time? Because I know you offer these services inside your firm, and what's the best time for them to call you back?
Yep. So in general, once you cross that $20,000 in a year threshold in sales, okay, that's when you should start reaching out to an accountant to help you file your tax return, because it's not so much a saving money in taxes thing. It's more of the IRS knows that you have sales and you want to report it correctly. So not necessarily contact us when you hit that threshold, but contact a licensed professional so that they can help you report that income accurately. Now, in terms of contacting someone who can help you save money in taxes, the threshold that we've established with our firm is on average 30K or more per month in sales. Basically, the reason where we got that threshold from is because if you annualize those sales and calculate based on what we see for margins, which is, like 10 to 20%, that gets you to about $50,000 in profits. Once you're at $50,000 in profits, that's when S Corp tax planning starts to make sense. So consulting with a professional just to help you do your taxes when you cross $20,000 in sales in a year. Consult with a professional to save you money in taxes is once you cross $50,000 in profits in a year.
Exactly. Super insightful. And people need to know that there is something in the business that you find people that know about accounting in general, and you find these people in HR Block and many, many companies and firms. But the thing that working with you is like you are a dropshipping e-commerce specialist, and you know the business ins and outs, and you know the expenses, the write-off, and you can actually save money in taxes at the end. So people need to know that they need to look for these specialists to be able to help them and guide them through the process. And I know that you have some questions, like when you tell people what to ask to an accountant to test them and to see if they are actually knowledgeable in the area. So what do you recommend to ask first the accountant? What's that the first call? Hey, I have a dropshipping store, and how do I test the accountant?
Yeah, so this is mostly applicable to not so much of people that do your taxes, but if you are in the stage where you're hiring a bookkeeper, there's significant risk there because your taxes are calculated based on your profits, right? So eventually as a business owner, if you continue to scale up, make more and more money, bookkeeping is a headache. I mean, e-commerce is the type of business where you could have thousands of transactions, and being able to, account for all those transactions can be very, very complex. So a lot of people get to the phase where they start hiring bookkeepers. And here's the problem with that. If a bookkeeper doesn't understand your business, they won't understand how to categorize your expenses. And one of my biggest interviews was with an influencer that was in this situation where he hired a bookkeeper that was literally considering some of his Facebook charges as personal expenses and not deducting them as part of his profits, right? So basically, when you think about revenues less expenses gets your profits, his profits were overstated because he was missing all of those Facebook charges. His bookkeeper thought he was spending money personally on Facebook. So what that did was that created this super high profit, and it generated a super high tax. So my recommendation is you haze your bookkeeper a little bit. Even if you have your tax accountant that's also going to do your bookkeeping, haze them a little bit. Ask them questions about your business. Just like, hey, I have 2 payment processors. Do you think that's going to cause any problems? Or hey, I scale my business through Facebook ads. How is the accounting treatment for that? And you can tell very easily if you get the eyes glossed over look, or if they're confused or they start backpedaling. That's someone who probably doesn't really understand your business. And the question becomes, do you trust them to calculate your numbers right if they don't understand your business?
Exactly. Super insightful. So to close up, I know that you offer a course for beginners, so everyone needs to go here. Like, you can learn the fundamentals of accounting and taxes and how to apply them to your e-com business. And it's super, super insightful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to recommend people to go to ecomtaxacademy.com and read and get to know Chris and the team. And there you'll have a course that you can take. And let me tell you some of the modules that are in there. You have business entity, accounting 101, income taxes, payroll and employment taxes, how to do the sales tax. You have a quiz for your accountant so you can ask questions. You also have tax planning strategies, tax forms, how to do QuickBooks. You have so much information that you actually need to get started your journey in entrepreneurship and also e-commerce. So I highly recommend for anyone, the first cash that you get from your business, invest this money into this course so you can get started. So for this, we're giving a 20% off to my audience. You can use code GM20 so you can get the course 20% off. And please, if you have any questions, make sure you contact Chris, the team, if you are at that point to hire a bookkeeping and you're making $30,000 per month, you're at that point, contact them. Or if you're a beginner, I encourage you to go to this course because this is something, an asset for your business.
Think about a time that you went to a mechanic shop. And I don't know about you, I don't know very much about cars. But every time I go to a mechanic shop, they give me a price quote and they're like, hey, we're going to fix so-and-so part in your car and it's going to cost you $500. And in my mind, the reality is I know nothing about cars. I just know that there's something that they're saying I need to fix and that this is what I need to pay. And that makes me feel uneasy. Obviously, when a lot of your followers are going to their accountants, I'd imagine they're in the exact same situation. So the reality is the course will give you the tools that if you really wanted to, do all the work yourself. But that's really not what I recommend. Instead, what I want you to do is take the tools and the strategies you learn in my course and go out there and find a highly qualified professional that can do your work. And highly qualified doesn't mean expensive. Just you'll have a working knowledge of how accounting and taxes and tax plannings work and how you should be thinking about things so that when you sit down with an accountant, you know exactly whether or not they're a good fit for you and your business. And at the very least, you have a working knowledge of how all of these things work so that you can do it yourself if that is your preference.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Chris Riviera, for your time. It was super insightful. Where can people find you? They go to ecomtaxacademy.com. So that will be the only place they can go to, or do you have any other places they can find you?
Yeah, so ecomtaxacademy.com. I have one of my guys that answers DMs as well. We get flooded with DMs and tax questions, so my apologies if we don't get back to you timely. We try to get back to everyone we can. But really, the course is a great tool it's basically a consultation call on steroids. Like you'll learn everything you need to know about accounting and taxes for your business, for your e-com business specifically, through the course. But if you have more of a specialized scenario that maybe that question is not answered in the course, feel free to reach out to us via DM, and we try to respond to everyone. And we'd love to hear your questions and your feedback as well.
Awesome. So it will be through the contact form inside the website. And do you have any social media tags so people can go there?
Yeah. So I am at Ecom Accountant. So it's very easy to remember. You can find me on Instagram at Ecom Accountant.
Super easy. So happy to have you in the podcast. Thank you so much for your time. And hopefully we can get a catch up later down the year or next year so people can get to know you better and get more tips from you, okay?
Yes, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, Chris. Take care, okay?
Take care.